So good afternoon, guys. Recently did a loft build. Pretty much got done today, apart from some final touches. I've got some wire trim here to paint, but I got the last of the perches in. Everything inside done. Nest boxes are in. Sun pens on. Anyway, this was kind of a long point of contention for me. This is a little 4x8 loft for breeding. It's going to hold 6 pair. And I had originally had, this was a project, I had a hired carpenter who was working on this. And kind of after he'd done a little bit of work here, even though he was being paid really well, he just kind of started slacking off. I guess he didn't really want to make any money or something, and he started showing up less and less, and he kind of got sloppier and sloppier and sloppier as it was done. And this was actually the last thing he worked on, and he left it incomplete. When he left it, it was basically a wooden rectangle, and for some reason, the back wall, he wired in the lower back wall, but not the upper back wall. So the back wall, the upper back wall was solid. The lower back one was wired. I have no idea what he thought he was doing. He did that, and he left a dirt floor in. There was a dirt floor here, so it was just sitting on the dirt and was just built up. And I kind of had this mental block about carpentry as far as doing it myself. It kind of seemed like carpenters had magic powers. They were magicians or something. So needless to say, for years, even though I've always had lofts built by other people, and for the most part, even though I've put a lot of money into my lofts, it's probably, I don't know, $15,000 or $16,000 worth of lofts when it comes right down to it, with the labor and the materials. And like I said, I assumed carpenters had magic powers, so I was pretty daunting to take it on, not being a carpenter and not having, any building background. In my family, we bred animals, but we didn't build stuff. We had stuff professionally built, as far as dog kennels and poultry coops and stuff like that was all professionally built. So needless to say, big job for me tackling this mentally, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. The first thing I had to do is I had to put a floor in this thing. And obviously, in order to do the floor, I had to build the floor separately outside, and then I had to build it and then jack this thing up on my own, and figured that out, kind of some trial by error and maybe 1 or 2 YouTube videos, kind of trying to figure out the best way to do that. And it was actually pretty straightforward. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, even with one person. It was just kind of a matter of pushing on the building and lining it up and all that. So I got the floor in and got it blocked up, and it's pretty level in spite of what it is. Built the door, which obviously doors have to be square or they're not going to work properly. They're going to stick and all that, and it actually turned out all right. And he did kind of some crazy stuff on the front. This board he strapped across the front, and I really don't know what his thought was and his thought process was. So I kind of had to do a lot of crazy stuff to kind of make it work. But I'm happy with it. I put in these fiberglass panels along the front that provides a little bit of protection. After the wire, I have cinched the wire down with 2x2s and 1x2s. That way we're just not relying on staples. If you just rely on staples and nails, eventually you're going to get a raccoon or something like that. They're going to peel that off. So it needs to be really, really secure. Still need to get the paint done on this trim, and I've got a couple pieces of trim to do. I've got one up there. It's all right. And I should probably add another one down here. But other than that, it's pretty much done. So I'm using the platform perches. These are from Mike's Falconry. They're low cost. They're about $1.25 each. I prefer the V perch and box perches, but these platform perches, they work well. They're inexpensive. The nest boxes, I did not tackle those. They are manufactured by Rugged Ranch, and they just come in a kit and you put them together. And now that they've improved the wood that they use in those kits, they actually go together a lot easier than they used to. And I've got a lot of these. My breeding lofts are full of them. They're expensive. It's not going to be a final solution. I really want to go with, after watching Curtis Jackson's channel over there, Air Champ Lofts. If you want to go look at him, he is now using Ultimate Nest boxes. They're $80 each. These are $60 for 3 holes. So, I mean, you actually get a much better deal, I think, out of the Ultimate Nest boxes. But for now, this is going to be kind of a temporary solution. I don't like these open-fronted nest boxes. They do contribute a little bit to infidelity issues. Pairs need a little bit of seclusion for the best bet. But at the same time, I've got 50 individual coops, and it's just becoming a chore right now. So I really want to move some pairs into lofts. It's easier to manage them that way. Just less time consuming. When you have 50 individual coops plus all these lofts and all these birds, spend 3 hours a day just feeding and watering. And that's with an automatic watering system for all my individuals and elsewhere. So, I mean, it's a lot of work. So this is going to kind of hopefully lighten my load a little bit. I've painted inside white. This is painted with Kills, you know, or what's commonly also sometimes known as Zinsser, which has a mold inhibitor. In addition to helping to control the mold, because this thing sat here so long, there was quite a bit of mold and mildew developing on the roof because he put a flat roof on. I still have to do the roof here. I'm waiting on one sheet of OSB to do that. Finish that up, but that's going to be a this week thing if I can make time with the business stuff I have to do this week. So needless to say, there was a lot of mildew up there, and so it definitely needed painted. So in addition to helping to fight the mildew issue that was created by standing here since August, it's been sitting here. So 6 months it's been sitting, basically being rained on. Needless to say, that's going to help with that. I think the white's more attractive. The other really big benefit of having the white interior is it dramatically improves the light situation in the loft, and obviously in the winter, more light in the loft is very important. So we'll kind of go in here. It's got a simple latch. The floor is basically 3/4 OSB. Like I said, these are the Rugged Ranch nest boxes. They're built in, these are the 3s. So I put them together 3 at a time and basically nail them to the, screw them down to the wall. Put another one on top, screw it to the wall, then screw it down to the next one and repeat it. Perches just have runners in here, and like I said, he did a lot of crazy stuff. Like he put these cross beams in with these 2x4s. I don't know whether that was to stabilize it or what he was doing. And I kind of had to work around all that. I put the nest boxes in first. That was a mistake. I should have waited until I got everything else done. Perches in, or at least to hold the perches. So you can see a nice crack seam back there that's open. That was courtesy of him for some reason, doing crazy stuff with plywood. And you can see it's not framed. It's literally, it's got a corner and a corner, and then it's just open. So it's basically, it's not framed the way a building normally would be. Same way on the sides. I'll drill a 2-inch hole up there. With a hook, I will run my lights from the other lofts. Once I continue that circuit around, I've got to connect all these lofts together. I've still got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then this will be number 8 I have to do, that I have to run more lighting from here. I did make a mistake. I put the sun pen on, and when I did that, I cut a hole that I thought was adequate. It was not adequate. It turns out it was too small, and I kind of butchered it a little. It's not perfect, but it's all right. And the cage is not quite centered properly, but not bad. Normal little latch here, hook and eye latch, keep the birds in. So up here, it's an 8-foot doorway. So the problem is when you have high doorways like this, you're going to have birds shoot out over your head. On those breeding lofts, the same thing was done on them, where the door, that was one of the complaints I had with the carpenters. They did not put smaller doors in, they put in these big 8-foot doors, and needless to say, sometimes you get birds shoot over your head. So years ago, I used to just use boards over top, and sometimes you about take your head off when you walk into a loft. And I've got to step up, and it's all right. I'm not smacking my head or anything, but I basically just put this piece of fiberglass panel in. Since I have so many I was using to cover individual coops, and I'm gradually converting them to basically roofing felt covers at the moment. So I just had these fiberglass panels. They were fairly new, but they laid out in the weather, and the chickens were on them, and the mud was getting to them. So I mean, I had to scrub them pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're all right. They're clear. So I mean, we get the one benefit of using the fiberglass panel, obviously the light comes in, which is not going to happen with a solid board. So I've still got some painting to do and all that, but birds are pretty close to being in here. Basically get the feeders, I mean, it's habitable. Some of the paint needs to dry a little bit, but I think tomorrow I'm going to move the DeVrents in here, get them a feeder and water, and put some litter down. I'm going to use rice holes this time. Should probably sweep. There's some dirt and stuff like that has been picked up, but other than painting some trim on the outside and kind of, you know, prettying it up a little bit and putting the actual roof over top of this with a good angle to drain some water and getting it roofed and fixing stupid stuff like this seam. You can also see some daylight over there showing up, because he just kind of did things super crazy. In addition to that, and some paint, it's about ready to go. So it's get the nest bulls in, and they're going to be breeding in here pretty soon, I think. So, like I said, I had a real thing about carpentry and thought it was a magic skill and not something I could do. And it turned out all right, even though, you know, kind of had to deal with all this craziness. But I'm really happy with my floor, which was my main bit of construction, and in doing all this and getting it up and going. And I think it actually turned out pretty good for a first time, especially having to work with his, the last guy's craziness and fixing things he didn't do properly. I mean, you can kind of see down in here where I've kind of had to do a lot of different things, where extra 2x2s, stuff like that, because for some reason there was a gap there. And there's stuff like that in the racing loft. So I am super happy with it. If you are not a carpenter and you have issues with lofts, I recommend that you try. There's lots of instruction out there on YouTube and websites and stuff like that. And of course, we have these wonderful old-fashioned things called books. There's lots of them on carpentry. You can probably find them in a local used bookstore for cheap, or yard sales or stuff like that. If you've never built a loft before and you need a loft, I recommend that you try. Don't waste your money hiring people that maybe know carpentry really well, but they don't understand the necessities of what's needed for lofts. And this also applies to chicken coops, because they're just going to do things that you're not going to be happy with. You're going to get just weird stuff, especially with roof lines and stuff like that, and height. Obviously, being 8 foot high, you know, I can't reach up here. You know, I can barely reach that perch right there, but that's where I had to put it. You know, your loft should not be taller than your hand reaches. You know, basically the roof on this should be basically right about here. That way you can grab birds off of the perches here. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Video's getting pretty long. Probably going to have to cut it down some, but thank you for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. Catch you guys later.